Alright, we're back with some more post-commentary action. What do we got going on this time? Not looking incredibly powerful as far as starts go. The whiteback woodpecker is always a good start for food-gaining forest bird. Indigo bunting is a decent card as well. White-crowned sparrow is our only wetland option in the starting hand. Trey's not looking too amazing either here. Bonus cards, we have Platform and Enclosure Builder. And Enclosure Builder puts White-crowned sparrow on the board, definitely. Having some second thoughts about it, it's not generally a great bird. I kind of waver back and forth on it, but really the bonus card makes it so even though it's a mediocre card, it's got to line up with my bonus card. And that's one of the great sticking points for skill in Wingspan, is knowing when bad cards are good and when good cards are bad. Pretty straightforward play to start the game. We're going to throw down the whiteback woodpecker using our nectar to get onto the board for the nectar points. And now we're in position to scoop up the 2 nectar in the bird feeder. My opponent drew cards here. Gonna scoop up the nectar as planned. There, my opponent played the red cockaded woodpecker. We're gonna throw down our sparrow here using nectar to get on the board for the nectar points in the wetlands. Now we're in position to have a fairly decent draw card action, activating column 2 there. And now we're going to draw 2 off the deck. Crackle's a good pull. And I'm thinking about the screech owl here to throw into my forest. Kind of deliberating back and forth about whether to migrate the sparrow or not, trying to take full advantage of this brown power. And ultimately I decided to keep it in position to help me draw those 2 cards if I need to. And the grackle is going to be nice to convert excess cards into extra eggs and points. I'm going to draw some more cards myself. Willy Wagtail is an interesting bird. And we're going to keep the sparrow in the wetlands. And my opponent draws cards again. I'm going to throw down this grackle. There's some eggs for my opponent. So there we can see my opponent's board, 2 bonus card birds. And they've laid eggs, so they're probably wanting to play a bird into the second column of the forest or the wetlands here. And I decided to let the screech owl go here for an extra egg. There's some more cards from my opponent. And we're just going to gain food here in preparation for round 2. And the Willy Wagtail is going to take the place of that screech owl in my forest. And my opponent managed to get down the 3rd bird to tie the wrong goal here. And the tray is looking pretty good for them with that common yellowthroat. I'm sure they will grab that, and they do, but they flip up the ruddy duck for us. So I'm looking at that and thinking, do I really need that? Am I doing okay for cards, especially with the Willy Wagtail coming up on deck? But I ultimately decide that, yes, I'm going to take it. It could be useful for me, but I may not actually use it. I'm still kind of deliberating whether it's worthwhile or not. And we get the scissor-tailed flycatcher off the top of the deck. That's a pretty good bomb. It's also a cup nest bird for the wrong goal. And we will continue to keep the sparrow in the wetlands. Here comes the wagtail. And my opponent has decided to take the magpie lark there. That yellow power will let them play an extra bird at the end of the game. And we're just going to grab some food and hopefully get a good card off the wagtail. And the hermit thrush is the best of the pick here. It's not terrible. 7-point bomb with a star nest. And we'll pick up some nectar. So Horsfield's bush lark looks like it might get a little bit of mileage here. We have some excess wheat. We'll be able to discard 1 to lay 2 eggs on the bush lark. And it looks like we might have the makings of a decent little grassline engine here. The bush lark also has synergy with my enclosure builder bonus card. And we need to really start making progress on that. The hermit thrush will be the 3rd bird toward that thanks to its star nest. And there we can see my opponent has played Benelli's Eagle as well. So they have a lot of non-brawn powers here lining up, but they're getting some pretty good bombs. Wagtail misses, and we pick up a nectar here. And thankfully we haven't really revealed too much for my opponent that would be amazing for them. The frigate bird is a good bomb. Meadowlark would give us extra eggs. Wouldn't mind that too much. And here comes the flycatcher. Going to use nectar to take the lead in the grassland nectar points. And my opponent draws more cards, digging off the back of that yellow throat. And I'm going to discard a wheat here for an extra egg. It's going to allow me to lay 3 eggs on birds with cup nests for the wrong goal. And we're going to win that. Decide not to hand out the worm here to help my opponent out. I'm going to discard a wheat for 2 eggs on the bush lark, and I'm going to skip the grackle because at this point I feel like I want to play all 3 of these birds. So we win the round goal. And what does the tray have for us? That Cassin Sparrow isn't looking too bad here to throw into the grasslands for extra egg production. Kind of got the makings of a pretty good engine here. Rainbow Lorikeet isn't that amazing. Deliberating about the sparrow, and at this point I think that I do want to play the ruddy duck. So I'm going to move the sparrow into the forest, which opens up the play for the ruddy duck in the wetlands, and that way I don't trap my sparrow behind the ruddy duck. It leaves that option open for later. And here comes the ruddy duck. So now in retrospect, the round 3 goal is filled columns. In the moment, it might have been better to leave the sparrow in the wetlands and throw the ruddy duck down in front of it in order to guarantee those 2 filled columns. I didn't really see that or think about that in the moment. Here we gain some food. But the sparrow comes back down to the wetlands anyway. And we grab a canvasback off the top of the deck. That will be a pretty good play for my bonus card with its nice star nest. And now we're kind of in position to play the hermit thrush and the canvasback to fill up that 3rd column. So as we approach the end of round 3 here, my opponent isn't really mounting much of an offense. It looks like they're having some bad luck on their card draws. They're not really mounting much of an engine. And we have a lot of good brown powers here, but I'm not necessarily spamming that engine. Primarily my grasslands. Just kind of taking actions from every habitat. This would actually be a really good game, I think, for the teal PAB birds. But we're not seeing those. So here comes the hermit thrush. Gaining food here. Kind of some crummy choices in front of me. I'm gonna flip the tray, and the painted bunting is looking pretty good. Good bonus card bird. Too bad it's not a ground nest. And we get to roll the bird feeder and get a nectar. My opponent is in position to tie on the wrong goal here, so we definitely want to try to fill out this third column. So we're not really getting a very powerful engine activation here, but we're controlling the fundamentals of the game, being the wrong goals and the bonus cards. Although we only have one bonus cards ourselves here, trying to get as many points as we can from it is an important factor. My opponent has 3 bonus cards, but not a tremendous amount of birds on the board. They appear to be caught between a couple different strategies, and they really could just be falling victim to bad draws here. More card draw from my opponent. And here comes the Hermit Thrush. And at this point, I don't think it's possible for my opponent to steal the wrong goal from me or even tie me. There, they have 2 activations left with 2 wheat and a nectar. They need to play 3 birds. And they only have 1 egg, so it's not going to be possible for them to fill out the third column. There's spotted towhee in the grasslands. And here comes the canvasback, forcing that down. Claiming victory on the wrong goal there. And scoring 4 points off my enclosure builder card. My opponent's last-ditch effort to tie on the wrong goal there with that 0-point towhee. So that canvasback is a really strong play here, just due to the fundamentals of the game, the wrong goals and the bonus cards. And we win that one. The tray isn't looking too amazing. White-throated dipper would have been great early on for my opponent here. They get the pick of the tray. And it could be a decent pair up with that main duck, but at this point in the game, I think they're kind of stuck. They really need to play more wetland tucking birds, tuck lay birds, or somehow generate the resources to start dropping bombs. My opponent gains food. I have a decent grassland activation in front of me, but at this point I definitely want to get the painted bunting down, so I'm going to gain food here. And playing more birds lines up with the wrong goal. Playing more birds. And not really a terribly great choice here. I think about the white throat at first. Maybe I'll get some extra eggs off that. But ultimately I decide to go with the 5-point nutcracker. I'm not really planning on playing it, but it just seems like the best scoring card at the moment. It'll probably get discarded or tucked. Butcherbird shows up in the tray. I wouldn't mind having that here. But we only have 4 activations left in the game, so we really have to start scoring some points. My opponent lays eggs. Here comes the bunting. And hopefully we get a real nice bonus card here. 10 birds on the board. And Forester looks like it's going to be the pick here. That Eurasian Nutcracker is actually going to come through pretty clutch. Because playing that will get us 4 points from Forester, 5 points from the Nutcracker itself, and then it gives us 1 more bird toward the wrong goal. So again, we're not really running an engine, but we're playing toward the fundamentals of the game. Fighting over those 22 wrong goal points and fulfilling our bonus card obligations. There we see a bush tit in the grassland, so my opponent is going to be making a bit of a last-ditch effort here for some egg spam. The bush tit does give them +1 toward the wrong goal, but it's a low point bird, so they kind of lose a little bit of ground due to the egg cost. And at this point I need eggs and food in order to play the Nutcracker. So thankfully I have that rat in reserve, and I'm going to gain a worm off the flycatcher, handing one out to my opponent as well, and I'll be able to overpay for the Nutcracker. Looks like my opponent has their 2 eggs in the forest for their end of game magpie lark activation here. It'll be interesting to see what they drop off that. There, they've laid some eggs. They didn't tuck a card on the bush tit. Comes the Nutcracker. Seven-point net play there. That helps us advance on the wrong goal. And it fulfills points on our Forester bonus card. And there we see a roseate spoonbill from my opponent here on their last turn of the game. Kind of scary. Those bonus card birds at the end are always scary. They're tying us on the wrong goal. And now we're just going to run our grasslands finally. Fortunately, we don't have a wheat to discard to the bushlark. But that poor indigo bunting from the starting hand is on deck to be tucked behind the grackle. And there we got a tie. My opponent is deciding what bird they're going to play off their magpie lark. They have 2 wheat. We won the forest nectar. And we won the grassland nectar. And we lost the wetland nectar. So we did pretty good on nectar points. Alright, if you like that grassland action, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Help me get to 700 subs. And here we can see controlling the fundamentals of the game has given us a pretty comfortable lead. See if my opponent can bring it back. And 89 to 76, so low score war here. Very interesting to see these low scoring games, and like I said, control the fundamentals of the game here and pull out a victory. And I don't think my opponent actually played a bird off the magpie lark here, so they didn't get to capitalize on that. Alright, well, thanks for watching, everybody.